Welcome to the Daily Debrief, an in-depth look at one of today's top stories. I'm Jason Dinant, here with 13 Action News reporter Abel Garcia. Now, Abel's story today was in regards to the district attorney in Clark County not prosecuting a Las Vegas Metro police officer who they assume or allege was involved in a theft ring. Abel, can you give us a little bit more information about this story and why the district attorney is not pressing charges at this time?
Most certainly, Jason. So right now at this time, what the district attorney was able to talk to us, unfortunately, we weren't able to speak to him personally. From what we heard from the district attorney's assistant is that as of right now, as you just mentioned yourself, the DA is not going to accept the prosecution that was placed by the Metro Police Department against this officer. And sometimes what we were trying to kind of come to the conclusion about the situation is we actually decided to speak to the president of the Police Protective Association. And he kind of told us that sometimes this may happen because one, they don't have enough evidence or they don't have enough support to be able to follow through with that prosecution. So they have to deny it. So what that means is that it can be reopened down the road again. If new information comes to light, then they can reopen that case and continue to dive in furthermore to see if this officer is guilty of what those original charges were. But as of right now, there have not been any charges filed against him, and the prosecution no longer is against this officer as well.
Now, what exactly did the police have as evidence, and what was the crime that he is suspected of committing in this ring of theft?
Well, according to the police report that was released by the LVMPD, what we were trying to see right now is that they were talking about he was originally suspected or he was accused of potentially being a part of some type of crime within home improvement stores. So in Home Depots and some Lowe's throughout the entire area here in Las Vegas, what they were trying to see is that they were some correlation into a theft ring. So there was multiple people involved that were all kind of in this type of agreement that they would go into these home improvement stores with these carts. They would grab items, place them inside of their carts. Then with credit cards, with stolen credit cards, they would purchase these items and then bring them back to accept those refunds in cash. And so that was one of the original claims that they were making towards this theft ring. And this police officer was in some shape, way, or form correlated or related to those actions as well.
Now, what is happening with him? Is he still a police officer because these charges are not sticking as of this point, or is he still off the force? Did you know any more information about that?
Now, unfortunately, we were not able to speak to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, but what we were able to be told is that as of right now, all we know is that this police officer was placed on suspension. So as of now, he is suspended from the police department and he's not getting paid. So that's the only information we know so far. Now, we would like to go ahead and dive in a little bit deeper and possibly ask, police department of what's the next steps? What are going to happen? What is going to happen to this police officer? And what will be the action that will be taken? Because clearly the police department is prosecuting this officer and they do have, they have him on a suspension. So clearly there's something that they are seeing that maybe the DA does not have the same opinion or does not have the same view. So we're just trying to narrow it down and kind of see their perspective as well, in addition to that of the DA's.
And when you talk to the police union as well as the DA's office, how unique of a situation is it when the police want somebody to be prosecuted and the DA says, no, you got to go back and find more evidence? Is that a common or is that more rare of a case?
That's a great question. I asked him the same exact thing myself as well. I asked the president, I asked Steve Gramus about this too. And he was saying, this does happen. This is a situation where, yes, the police department does what they need to do. They go through the prosecution process. They then also go through the suspension process. And then from there, they leave it up to the justice court. They leave it up to the system to kind of determine what is the best action that takes place for this individual. So in this case, he did say that this happens sometimes. He also compared it to the Derek Chauvin situation where the police officers and the law enforcement did what they had to do at that moment. But then once they pass it to, the higher authorities and the systems, that's when they kind of made that final decision and then press the charges and proceeded with the process as well. So we do see this within our law enforcement and within our police departments too. But this is just an ongoing situation that we have these different steps and these different situations that they go through in order to go through a proper process to then make the final decision necessary to be as fair as possible. And I think one thing I also want to mention real quickly too is just overall, one thing that they very much so in the union wanted to very clearly state is it doesn't matter whether it's a police officer, whether it's a pilot, whether it's just an average citizen, it's the same system for everyone across the board.
Thank you so much for joining us here on the Daily Debrief. For more on this story and all of today's top stories, visit ktnv.com. And after the break, come back for more KTNV streaming Las Vegas news on your time.